Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Identity Love Podcast number 4. I'm Tracy. I am a life coach and identity specialist for folks who have lost themselves in relationships and don't know who they really are anymore. And so I help you to find not only how to be yourself, but how to be your coolest self, so you can stop the cycle of partner pleasing and people pleasing and actually enjoy being you. All right, so in this episode, I'm going to talk about the little things that piss us off and why it is actually super important. Clues and cues to the reality of our true identity. And so when we go through life and there's things that annoy us, there's things that piss us off, there's actually wisdom and information in that can help us be better for ourselves. So I'm going to explain. So I'm going to play devil's advocate for a little bit because it helps us to see a new perspective. It's so easy to get stuck in one way of thinking as we go through our lives, and we aren't aware that there's a different way to see things. Instead of seeing things as maybe a negative or bad trait that we have, we can actually use it to turn it around and see something deeper about ourselves and something we can do that would make a better effect in our lives. When we see certain personality traits in others that we think is annoying or gets under our skin, it might just mean that we ourselves need to be a little bit more like that person who is annoying us. Again, I'm playing devil's advocate and I'm going to get into this more, but I just want you to open your mind and see this as a good thing. Because that means that if you are annoyed by somebody like this, that I'm going to explain in 4 different ways, that if someone like this annoys you, you can actually use this for good. This can actually help you instead of making you think, oh my God, I'm so easily annoyed. I'm so judgmental. I don't know why I feel pissy, right? It can actually help us. So this is a good thing. Okay, so the first example I have is when someone in a happy and healthy way is going about enjoying getting attention. Again, not in a way that is intentionally trying to make other people less, make other people feel inadequate, but because they are genuinely happy with themselves. Now, this tends to be, from what I've seen with myself and what I've seen from clients, is a big thing that comes up where we feel triggered, we feel annoyed, we tend to pinpoint certain people who are going through their lives in this way. Because if you were raised similar to me, you believe that there's a certain level of humbleness that you need to have in order for you to be a good person. And if you're going out there a little bit too presenting as being too happy with yourself, as being too proud of yourself, then somehow you are showing off in a bad way, and that's not allowed. That's bad. And so my parents are very quiet, very humble, very much like that. And so from a young age, I was taught, I don't know exactly how or in what way, but they would always say things or imply, like, don't brag. Don't try to show off too much because that's bad. You could hurt someone else's feelings. It doesn't look good. It's good to have accomplishments. It's good to have self-esteem, but don't show it to other people too much, right? Like, don't show it off. Just keep it to yourself. And so I remember I'm from Hawaii, so they put me in hula class, dancing hula, from age like 4. And I think I might have been about 6 or 7 at this time. But I really remember this because it really pissed me off as a 6 or 7-year-old. But we were in hula class, and we're all sitting down in a classroom. And the kumu hula, the teacher, she said, who here knows how to dance to the Hawaiian Jingle Bells song? And there's this one girl, Heather, who was the same age as me. She immediately put her hand up in the air and she's like, I know it. And we're all kind of staring at her in surprise, like, we didn't know it, so how did she know it? And so the teacher's like, okay, Heather, come up here and show us what you know. Show us the dance. So she put the music on, and then Heather starts doing the dance, and you can tell that she only partially knows it from having watched the other girls do it, but she's doing it really badly. Like, she's making it up as she's going along, but she has this huge smile on her face, and she's dancing, she's doing it as if she's doing it perfectly, and she looks so happy with herself. And she's having this great time. And the teacher's kind of just sitting there smiling, being like, okay, she doesn't really know, but at least she's trying, right? And then so she's like, thank you, Heather. You can sit down now. And so Heather goes and she sits down and she looks happy. She looks happy and everyone's kind of amused. And the class moves on. But I am sitting there seething. I'm like, did anybody else not just see that? Nobody else is going to call her out and punish her? Like, it was a big deal to me. And I remember just being so angry about this. And even back then, I was put off by the fact that the teacher didn't say, hey, you didn't actually know that dance, so why are you smiling so big? But it was kind of like I had this thing in my head that was like, how dare she think she's so great? Like, how dare she? Like, I was so indignant. I was so put off by that. And I would always think like, I would never do that. I would never do that. She was doing that, and not only doing that and being happy about it, but she was getting away with it. Nobody else really saw it as all that bad. And then fast forward to me being a young adult, I had a friend of a friend, and we're all hanging out. And this friend of a friend was just talking about what she was doing, what she had accomplished lately. And she's like, oh yeah, my boss loves me. I can tell because he's relieved that I'm a hard worker. I think that he didn't really have too many hard workers before then. And so we're really getting along, and I feel like I'm moving forward in life. And she was just saying all these different things in a way where I was shocked, first of all, where I'm like, you're just going to say that your boss likes you that much? I had that in my head. But also, I could just tell that she was bubbling over with just how happy she was with her life and who she was. And again, I felt that same kind of anger well up. And I was looking around at everybody else's faces, and everyone's like, oh, that's good, that's good. But for some reason, it pissed me off. I was sitting there quietly, silently, just seething. And again, it was the same thing where I thought, the nerve of her, right? How dare she just be able to sit there and say these things? And I remember those things bothering me because I logically understood that nobody was being hurt in this situation. It was all in good character and good fun. Heather thought that she could give it her try, give it her all, and she tried her best, and it didn't bother her, even if she didn't do it right. And this friend of a friend, she was just sharing how good she felt about herself. She was sharing her accomplishments, what she was excited about for herself, what she liked about herself. She was just healthily sharing this. And the only reason why I thought it was a problem was because deep down inside, I felt like in my own life, I was preventing myself and shaming myself and not allowing myself, episode number 1, listen to that if you haven't yet, I wasn't allowing myself to be like that in my own life. I was so busy worrying about everyone else's feelings, so busy worrying, am I showing off a little too much? Do I seem too happy with myself? So worried about seeming like I thought I was too special when deep down inside, that's what I wanted. Deep down inside, I wanted to feel special. I wanted to allow myself to feel happy with myself. I wanted to express my accomplishments, to express how I felt in a healthy and happy way, and I had never learned how to do that. And so to see these other people just doing it, and oh my gosh, getting away with it, of all things, it really affected me in a way that made my soul angry because my soul yearned to be more like that. Okay, so again, this is a very common one. So if you feel like when somebody is quote unquote showing off, but it's not actually in a harmful or hurtful way to anyone else, and it bothers you, it's only because you yourself are yearning to be more of that, about letting yourself be a little bit more of that. It's about seeking balance. We're seeking to balance ourselves out. It means that you haven't allowed that in your life, or you are blocking it from yourself in some way, or making it mean that it's something bad about you, when deep down inside, that's what you need more of. Because when I was going through my life worrying so much about what others were thinking of me, I essentially just felt invisible. And we know how painful it is to feel invisible in our relationships, in our lives. And so that was me yearning to be visible, and then being pissed off when I see these other people being visible, and I wasn't allowing myself to do that. So it was less about them having to be less of what they are, and more about what I needed to be more of. Okay, example number 2. If you are bothered when someone doesn't smile back at you. So, the first thing you need to know about me is that I have worked for pretty much my entire adult life in bars and restaurants, particularly in touristy areas where there's people from all over the world. And I'm American. So, in America, we are taught that the polite, right thing to do is if someone's like, hey, how are you? You smile back and you're like, I'm fine. Thank you. How are you? Right? And you make this positive, uplifting banter. You're supposed to smile. You're supposed to look happy. You're supposed to put forth this positive exterior if you want to be a polite, good person. And so, what I noticed while serving these people from different countries is that not everybody around the world has this same culture and same expectation. Unless there is actually something to smile about, something funny going on, something amusing, something that is particularly uplifting, unless there's an actual reason to smile, they don't feel pressed to smile. So if I approach a table and I'm like, hey guys, how are you? What can I get you? I expect them to smile back and be like, oh, hi, how are you? We're fine, thank you. We would like to get, I don't know, a Coca-Cola. So that's what we're expecting. But I noticed that when I was serving certain people and I said, hi, how are you? They'd be like, hi, so I guess I'd like to have a lemonade, please. And then I'm ready to order. And they had the poker face. And so at first I was like, okay, are they having a bad day? Something wrong? Is there something, do they not like me? I took it kind of personally. I started to think there's something wrong with them. But then I learned over time that it's a cultural thing. I think America is the one that is the most requiring you to smile. But so many other places in the world, they don't have that. And so it's not expected. That's just not the norm. That's just not the habit. So it has nothing to do with me. And it absolutely has nothing to do with them trying to be rude or off-putting in any way. They're just, wait for it, they're just actually being true to themselves. True to their own emotions. That's what we do. We are basically taught in America to please others lest they think you're rude by putting on this happy face so we come off as a good person. So back to when I was serving these people and they had the poker face, at first I thought, rude, right? I would never. I would make the effort. I would smile back. It's just the nice thing to do. Until I realized that it necessarily wasn't. There was no law of the universe that says that you have to be smiling back at all times. That's just something that we made into a cultural construct and is the norm here. And so once I realized this, and once I realized that it was annoying me just because I felt like someone else needed to smile back at me so I didn't feel bad about myself, so I didn't think that they were rude, so I could feel better about my life, when I realized that I was actually requiring somebody else to please me by putting on a fake face to please me, I was like, oh. And I think that that's better than being true to yourself. I somehow thought that that was better. But here they are, just being themselves. And I wouldn't want to force these people to smile for me when they don't want to, when they're just having a normal day. I wouldn't want them to have to fake it, right? Like, that's not what they were taught. And I wouldn't want to need that. Once I understood that and wrapped my mind around that and saw that how it reflected on me and my own soul and how I always expected myself to be putting on the happy face, to be pleasing, and then how much I graded myself by that, how much I took pride in that. It's like, oh, you smiled back. You were so nice. Good job. You're doing it well. When in actuality, I was like, really, am I? I'm just pleasing people. I'm just putting on this face. And it's not that I think that I should not do that. I still do that. I do that all the time. It's not that I'm going to stop doing it. But it is just that I realized that the only reason why it bothered me when someone else didn't do it is because I had this thing in me where I believed that it was better to please. It was better to look positive. It was better to be happy for someone else, not yourself. It's almost like I thought that it was bad to have any emotions other than this fake happiness, right? And we know about that thing where guys tell girls, hey, smile, right? And how much we hate that as women. And so it's kind of the same thing. Why would I want some stranger to basically smile at me? I'm going to think that you're rude and I'm going to be pissed off if you don't smile at me, that kind of thing. I'm like, why would I want to do that back to somebody else? And so recently, it was so funny because I was hiking at Griffith Park the other day, and people like to leave these stick letters, kind of like SOS signs, but then it's actually words, as these words of encouragement to other hikers and whatnot. And there's this one that just said smile. And then I looked at that, and the first feeling I felt was annoyed, because this is my whole passion, is to help people not live by these rules that are just arbitrary, but because I kind of wanted to put more sticks underneath it that spelled out only if you want to, right? So smile only if you want to. But if it makes you feel better, if it somehow creates this dopamine effect in your body and you feel happier for it, cool. But don't just tell people to smile just so they look happier, so you feel better. It is madness when you think about it. I've read so many Yelp reviews where someone's like, oh, if these people smiled more, it would have been a better experience. And hey, I get it. I understand customer service. I understand how much it means when somebody smiles at you. I understand that. But at the same time, when we decide that we're going to get pissed off at somebody just because they can't muster up this fake enjoyment, this fake happiness, then we're the ones who need to look at that and say, why does this bother me so much? Why can I not handle it if somebody isn't smiling at me? Okay? So, like I said, I'm not about to stop smiling and stop seeing that as a way of being polite anytime soon, but I am no longer going to so heavily require that from anyone else, let alone myself, in situations where it's not my job to be smiling, literally not my job to be smiling. No one's paying me. I'm not on the clock. I'm not here to make other people feel comfortable around me by me being as happy and as positive as I possibly can. Which, by the way, was once my goal in the very beginning when I was first working on myself. My goal was to be happy all the time so other people felt good around me, and that was a complete disaster. But that's going to be a topic for another episode. Okay, so next example is loud people. And so if you're not a particularly loud person, you know exactly what I'm talking about. These are the kind of people you can hear from across the room when you're sitting at your own table, trying to talk softly so the people next to you don't overhear your conversation, right? It's the people that walk into the room and you can hear them and they're like, la, 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 and you're just like, oh my God. And again, it's not the kind of people that are out there trying to negatively affect people and be rude on purpose. It was the kind of people just moving through life, being lively and happy because they felt good, because they're having fun. And I felt myself judging, and again, thinking that same thing, like, how dare they? I wouldn't do that kind of stuff, right? It was like, I would never do that. It was always just something about, wow, they shouldn't be allowed to do that. And so I thought about this too. I'm like, okay, if they're over there just having a good time, not actually trying to hurtfully bother anyone, and I'm over here fuming, what's actually going on here? So I thought back to when I was growing up, and I remember when I was at home, I felt my most comfortable. I was very quiet in school, but at home I was just like, rah. So I remember my mom continually telling me, she's like, you're so loud. Stop being so loud. You're too loud. And so it's true. Like I felt like I wasn't allowed to be loud. And so and I noticed that back then when I was being loud, it was because I was having the most fun. It was when I was being the most comfortable in my own skin. And then someone told me I'm being too loud, that I'm being annoying, it's too much, right? And so now I felt like, okay, so that's bad. I cannot do that. That seems off-putting to some people. So of course it bothers me when people are going out there being their comfortable, happy selves and being loud, and I take it personally. And I get mad at them when it's actually because deep down inside my soul is yearning for that myself. Like, here are these people going out, enjoying their lives, being fully themselves without worry, and I'm over here worrying about every single thing I do in case it may or may not come off obnoxious to somebody else. This doesn't mean that I'm going to not care what anyone thinks. This is just that I'm realizing that I could stand to use a little bit more of allowing myself to be expressive and loud and happy with myself in my own way in my life. It is a signal to myself that I could use more of that for myself. And so now I get to take off all the judgment of these loud people. Side note, I lied. I'm not going to stop judging certain people when they're really loud, but I can understand that part of it is that it's a permission slip for me to actually do that too in my own life. So it's not that I'm just annoyed. It's like I'm annoyed, but I'm also seeing, okay, this is a signal from my soul that it's safe to do this in my own life. I can do a little bit of this too. It's fine to express myself. I don't have to believe what my past was. And it can feel freeing and good to admit this to myself. And then finally, a final example that I have is people who are quote unquote picky and particular. So again, when you're working in bars and restaurants and someone sends a drink back because they're like, I just don't like the way it tastes. Or there's like, my soup is cold. Can you make it actually hot? Or they're saying like, this is a little too spicy. I don't care for this dish, right? Now listen, there's tons of people who say this in a rude way, and that is really annoying. But there's so many people who are just like, oh, excuse me, I don't care for this. Or, yeah, could you please heat my soup up more? And now, if you are in the weeds, as they say, which means that you are in the middle of 10,000 other things, you're already stressed out, there's already somebody over there who wants to check, there's already somebody over there who's telling you need to do something, and they're waiting for their food, you're already stressed out, and someone says that they need a hot soup, it is aggravating. It's the last thing you need. Okay, that aside, I noticed that even when things weren't stressful like that, and someone's like, excuse me, could you heat my soup up? I would feel a bit of like, right? Like I'd feel something, not like it was because it was inconvenient for me, but something inside of me, again, was saying, I would never. How dare that person? I would never. But logically, I'm like, they're paying to be at this place, at this establishment, and if their soup isn't as hot as they would like, it is perfectly a totally normal thing to ask if I could reheat it for them. If this was my mom asking me about this, I would be like, of course, of course, or someone you care about, right? You would totally forgive them. You wouldn't think that's being picky. You think like, no, you deserve to have what you want. And this is how we feel towards our partners, towards whoever it is that we're pleasing, right? So again, you probably understood by now that it was because I wasn't allowing myself to be picky and particular enough in my own life. And that's the only reason why it bothered me, because I myself was not speaking up. I myself was just tolerating so many things in my life, not just soup temperatures, but just how people were treating me. Just if something wasn't right, if I preferred something else, I just stayed silent and didn't be picky, didn't let it bother me. I didn't have any emotion other than this is fine, right? At the fake smile, speaking of smiles, right? So yes, that's what it actually signified. When I was annoyed when someone was being picky, it was because I myself was frustrated because I wasn't allowing myself to be that in my own life. It is about allowing yourself to be more particular, to allow yourself. It's like, it's okay if you prefer this thing. It's okay if you ask if someone can do something a little bit out of their way for you, especially if it's their job. It's okay if you ask your partner if you could do this other thing that you actually do prefer. It's okay. And to practice it, to practice allowing yourself to have those preferences, because the more that I understood that I wanted that in my life, the less judgmental I was with other people, because I understood. I'm like, yeah, of course you want that. You prefer that. It would give you a better experience. Okay, that was my example. I encourage you to think of your own, to notice whenever someone's just innocently going about their life and they're doing something that kind of gets under your skin. Ask yourself, what is going on beneath that? What is going on that your soul is saying, that's unfair. I would never do that. But maybe I do want to do that. I want to do that more. And so that's why I feel so upset, because I feel like I myself, it's unfair, right? It feels unfair. And so of course you're going to feel heated about it. So can you harness some of that stuff that annoys you for yourself? Can you see where in your own life you are lacking some of that, and that's the wisdom it's giving you? And look at your muses. Look at who you think your coolest self would be. Wouldn't they be a little bit more of those things. Because the loudness, the being happy about yourself, the pickiness, the thinking that people have to smile at you, would your muses be like that? Because I was thinking about mine, like Catwoman, she would totally just carry herself in this confident way, and she wouldn't smile back at somebody if she's like, she wouldn't be people pleasing like that. Just noticing how the people that you admire, the characters you admire, they are probably being a little bit more loud, a little bit more proud of themselves, a little bit more expressive, a little bit more picky, and they would respect themselves in that way. And so there is a way to do this is in a way that is not annoying, that isn't bad, that isn't obnoxious. And it's usually ourselves who are blocking ourselves from doing this because we are so convinced that if we do a little bit more of this, we're going to be as annoying as those people are to us, when they're actually not annoying at all. It's just that we're annoyed that we're not able to do that. It is actually something that is very inspiring to turn your anger into something that is admirable and inspiring instead of just annoyance, right? It's not about trying to not have negative emotions. I am totally for feeling your anger, feeling annoyed at people, admitting that you have these emotions. That's actually an important part of learning how to not partner please, people please, is to allow yourself to have these emotions because they're important. But the reason why they're also so important is because it's something important within your soul that is trying to show you something. So why not feel both? Because a sign of intelligence is being able to hold two opposing thoughts and feelings at the same time. You can feel annoyed and slightly inspired at the same time, and you get to choose. So if you're going to go through life and have to be around all these different kinds of people, it's good to use this as information, to use this to say, oh, what does this mean about me? How can this be something that I can use for myself to show myself that I need more of this? That maybe it's not them that's annoyed. Maybe I'm annoyed with how I wish I had more of that for me. And how can I use this to become more of who I want to be? So I can feel better about myself, so I can like myself more, show up more as myself in my life. I teach this stuff. I coach one-on-one on this stuff. If you want personalized help in becoming who you really are and being more of who you enjoy being, come work with me for a year in Identity Love Year. You're going to become such a different person. It's going to change your life. And until the next episode, I hope you have an amazing week. Go forth and notice the things that annoy you and see if it's something that you could use to improve your own self, to have insight to your own soul, and be more of who you want to be. Do something more for yourself this week, just a little bit more, even if nobody else notices. Do it for yourself and see if you can be a little bit more of who you're yearning to be inside. All right, I'll talk to you all later. Have an amazing week. Bye-bye.